Hey Krishna, everyone. Hare Krishna, Satya Mataji. Nice to
हरे
see
कृष्णा
you.
प्रभु जी।
हरे कृष्णा
Nice.
प्रभु जी, दंडवत प्रणाम।
हरे
Hare
कृष्णा प्रभु जी।
Krishna.
हरे कृष्णा प्रभु जी।
How was your wellness program in Kerala? Oh, your line is muted, Mataji. Couldn't hear you. Can't hear you. Actually, yeah, your speaker is muted. That's all right. No problems. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, so we will continue from where we stopped last week. Before that, any reflections on the video which we had played during the class? I also shared the link to the video for those of you who could not attend the class. Any reflections? Anyone who has watched the video? Anything you'd like to share? Lalita Mataji, you were in the class last week, yes? Okay, no problems. Right? It's amazing, like, before even the advancement of science, uh, modern day science, the Bhagavatam was already able to reveal the entire development of the fetus. And in the video, it's also explained. Of course, in Bhagavatam, it's also explained that the child, right, not any child, but some children, because of the mercy of the Lord, is able to remember hundreds of their lifetimes, and the child begins to not only ponder but also begin to ask himself, like, what am I doing? I'm just getting back into this cycle of birth and death. And I'm going through so much of tormentation right now in my mother's womb. And while I'm cognizant of what is happening around me, at the same time, I know that the moment I'm out of my mother's womb, what's going to happen is Maya Devi is going to trap me again. All right. And while I'm in my mother's womb, I'm remembering the Lord and I'm praying to the Lord that, yeah, while the situation over here is so difficult, right? The worms are biting me. Whatever spicy food my mom is taking me, it's tormenting me. I'm just in a sack. It's so, so difficult. But at the same time, I'm praying to the Lord that, you know, if you take me out, I will be captured by Maya, right? But then, the child is still pushed out of the mother's womb. And by the arrangements of providence, by Mother Nature, he forgets everything. Okay. But he had made a number of promises to the Lord while he or she was in the mother's womb. So today we will look at, um, what were some of the promises made by the child while the child was in the mother's womb. Okay. So that's my takeaway from last week's class. We'll begin with today's class. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasme Shri Guruve Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Sri Gurum Vaishnavamscha. Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Ragunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam. Satvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakam Vitamscha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishvabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhaeva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Cheva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet. Nasta Prayasta Badreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtuki. Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nandagopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Okay, so chapter 31 is really interesting. If you had not had the time to watch the video, please watch the video and please take some time out to go into the web and read the verses. If you have a little extra time, which you should, then read the purports because Prabhupada has given some amazing purports to to this 40 40 45 or 40 plus verses from this chapter. Okay, so very very important chapter. Please take time to go through this. Right, so parts of the chapter speaks about the prayers of the child, and and it's very important for us to once again reflect on this point that in order to give a particular type of human form to a person who has already suffered hellish life, right? What happens is the soul is then transferred to the semen of a man who is just suitable to become his father, right? So which means the father has desires and the soul, all right, which is lingering around. The soul has got desires too. The soul has got, the karma which the soul is bringing along, right? And therefore, if there is a match between the desires, the psychology, the consciousness of the father, and and the desires, the karmic, the karmic balance of the child, then what happens is Mother Nature, all right, will allow that soul to be transferred to the semen of a man, and then the soul is then transferred through the semen of the man to the woman's womb, okay, in order to produce a particular type of body. And once again, as we discussed in this morning's class, at that time, if the child is fortunate, all right, while the entire gestation period is going on, right, maybe from month number 8, 9, 7, 8, 9, that if the child is fortunate, the child can remember all the troubles of his past 100 births. And therefore, the child is like, grieving wretchedly, all right? There's no possibility of peace of mind in that condition, right? But then what happens is after birth, the child may forget about the difficulties of the past lives. But when we are grown up, we can at least understand the grievous tortures undergone at birth, all right, as well as at death by reading scriptures like Bhagavatam. Okay. So these are the, why do they say material life is very, very difficult? Birth is so difficult. Right? Bhagavatam explains this. We went through that video last week. Death is also a very, very painful process if we are not devotees. Right? And then old age, it's also difficult. And diseases, that's also a difficult part of, life. Okay. And it's amazing that, at least I remember when my wife was giving birth to, our children, she promised that she'll never have become pregnant again because it was so painful at that point in time. And similarly, the child is also praying the same, right? At that point in time, but then everyone forgets. Okay. Similarly, when one is undergoing some surgical operation, he or she will promise that I'll never act in that way to become diseased and to undergo medical surgery. Or when one falls into danger, again, that person promises that he will never again make the same mistake. Right? So similarly, the living entity, when put into a hellish condition of life, he prays to the Lord that he will never again commit sinful activities and have to be put in the womb for repeated birth and death. And therefore, in this hellish condition within the womb, the living entity is very much afraid of being born again. But when he's out of the womb, he's again in full life and good health, and he forgets everything and commits again and again the same sins. So, what were some of the promises the child made to the Lord while suffering in the womb of the mother? Anuj Prabhu, would you like to try? What were some of the promises the child made?
The child could remember his past
Mhm.
problems and past lives and his wretched life which he had earlier. And then he said that, please, I don't want to come out and again do the same thing again. So please give me shelter at your lotus feet. And
Yeah,
so these were the promises. But then, of course, he comes out and then magically he forgets everything. That's the very sad part about birth.
yeah. You know, I'm sorry to be like going through this thing again and again and again, but it's always nice to have a reinforcement. So thank you very much, Anuj Prabhu, and I'm very grateful to you, Anuj Prabhu, for sending out the daily broadcast to all of us. I really
Thank you
appreciate
for
it.
giving the opportunity, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. So the child in the womb, he now he now makes a promise. I will worship you, O Lord. In this lifetime, I will render service unto you. Just let me become an instrument in your hands. I will do whatever you want from me. Okay, that's what the child is praying. But of course, I do not really remember, what I actually said in my mother's womb, if I'm one of those fortunate children, right? But the Bhagavatam gives, an amazing description of how the jiva comes to consciousness in the womb in the seventh month and offers prayers to the Lord. Okay. So I actually, read through this amazing devotee's reflections, on his birthday, right? So he has a blog post and he shared his reflections, and it's really nice where he's on his birthday, he's saying that, this is what Bhagavatam is saying, and then, I'm just accepting it. I'm accepting it that, this is what I would have told the Lord. And he makes a commitment that this was the promise which I made to the Lord. All right, that I will take shelter of your lotus feet. I'll take shelter of the lotus feet of this Supreme Lord who has been walking on the earth and who is awarding fearlessness. All right. Although I've been very, very sinful and I got into this situation from him, I was lying in the womb due to Maya, right? And the Lord was there next to me, right? Just like how Parikshit Maharaj could perceive the Lord, right? So similarly, this Prabhu has written in his blog that, yes, I'm convinced because what this is what Bhagavatam is saying, that the Lord as Paramatma is next to me. All right. And the Lord who is Paramatma, he's unaffected and changeless. All right. He's there just because, of his inconceivable mercy to me. He's there. But at the same time, he's unaffected by the surroundings. He's unaffected by what is happening around him, right? Because he's the source of everything, right? And 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 the Lord is unlimited. But I, as a small child, right, as a 7 month fetus, I'm perceiving him in my repentant heart, right? This material body is made up of 5 elements. Although actually, essentially, I'm spiritual because I'm a jiva, I'm a spirit soul, right? And he's reflecting in his blog post once again, how can a person deeply afflicted by this samsara again engage in the loving service of the Lord unless the person has received the causeless mercy of the Lord or his devotees. This sukriti is so important, right? And in our previous class, we said that, Sukriti, which is devotional service, is spiritual in nature, and therefore it cannot come to us through a material nature. It cannot come to us through material concoction. It can only come to us through a spiritual entity, through spiritual energy. All right. So it's not because of me having done amazing Sukriti, by doing charitable activities, etc., that somehow, you know, this devotional service or this understanding of my linkage with the Lord is coming. No, it cannot come from material deeds which we have done. It can only come from spiritual deeds or by the spiritual mercy of someone. Okay, so this was, really discussed in our class extensively a few months ago. So please look through. I think it's in one of the recordings where, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is explaining. Okay, and therefore this would have come from a devotee. And in fact, Prabhupada even said that, I'm your Sukriti. All right. Uh, yeah. Right. So who else but the Paramatma residing in all living beings through all phases of life can give this knowledge to a person like me through another person, right? So, just take a moment to reflect on this very important point that, the Paramatma has been next to me my entire lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. But how much of time do I take to reflect on this point that my ever well wisher is there always next to me? How much of gratitude am I expressing to him? When things go fine, I forget about him. When things go wrong, I get very upset and I blame him. But I do not know that actually, even when things go wrong, he has orchestrated it for me so that I can learn something from him. He has orchestrated this for me so that in time to come, I will realize that, wow, it has been for my good. Right. So, in our Bhagavad Gita class, we spoke about the four wives, right? The four wives. The most important, or the oldest wife was the one who has always been with this person. And she says, I will always be with you. Right. And then who are the other wives? Do you remember? Our possessions. Our possessions will leave us, right? Our family members, right, will also leave us. And finally, this body will also leave us. But the person who has always been around, always been our ever well wisher, is the Supreme Lord as Paramatma. Okay, therefore, this Prabhu, in his blog post, he says we should surrender unto him because only by surrendering unto the Lord, we are actually destroying our miseries. Okay, only by surrendering, we are destroying our miseries. Okay. So while this gifted child is praying, the Lord is also remarking. Right? The Lord remarks, am I merciless since I do not get you out right now? This is the Prabhu's reflections. Does it mean that Paramatma is merciless because he's not getting us out right now from the mother's womb? So much of pain we're going through. Right? And the child, with shame, fear, biting his tongue, putting himself in a humble position. All right. The child, the Jiva, speaks. By your causeless mercy, I'm awakened to consciousness. I cannot repay your mercy, but can only pray with folded hands. The Jiva in another type of body sees only by instinct. Krishna, you are so merciful. You have given me, you are putting me as a Jiva into the human form, not an animal form right now. You are putting me into the human form because the Jiva in another type of body can only see by instinct, fight, eat, run away, right? But I am given a human body in which I'm given the propensity to come to you, to understand you, to control my senses, and also to understand my destination. All right. And because of this body which I'm given, because of that intelligence which I'm having, because of this human body, because of that intelligence which is there in the human body and not there in the, in the animals. Of course, the animals have intelligence, but not, all right, it's not operating at the same level as how it's operating for us. All right, because of this intelligence, I can see the Supreme Lord, I can perceive the Supreme Lord within me and also in everything which is there in this world. All right. And then the Prabhu continues, the, the, the Lord then says, you choose me by bhakti, but you are agitated by suffering, right? Because you requested to get out, I will now take you out of the womb. And the child is now replying, although I'm suffering inside the womb, I do not desire to get out of this place because the place outside is under the control of Deva Maya, Devi, who bewilders the jiva and perpetuates his samsara. All right, in a simple village in India, all right, Deva Maya, or the material nature under the jurisdiction of Devi, is not, is not acting in a very extreme way compared to in a country like Singapore, right? In a city like New York, etc., where you just go out of the house and your jiva is being bewildered. Okay? So now the Lord is saying, I want to take you out. You are saying you don't want to come out because of the, the Deva Maya. And then, so what have you decided? The Lord is asking the child. And the jiva answers, I will stay here and I'll destroy my sufferings with the help of my friend, my clear consciousness to surrender unto you. And I'll keep your lotus feet in my mind, and I do not want to take birth again. All right. So who is his friend apart from Paramatma? All right. His friend is also the clear consciousness. All right. The clear consciousness which is given to him. All right. And therefore he says, this is my friend, and I'll focus my mind on the lotus feet of Vishnu. Okay. And I'll surrender unto him. All right. So in essence, that's the prayer or the promise that we have given to the Lord within the womb. But what happens once we took birth? Again, we become covered by ignorance and we forget about the goal of life. Okay. So if you look at the bottom part of this slide, the Lord as Paramatma is in the heart of every living entity, and he can be only realized by a soul who is repentant, right? Who is repentant and who wants to surrender to the Lord. If the soul is not repentant, if the soul is happy with what is going on right now, it's going to be very, very difficult for us to perceive the Supreme Lord. Okay, so I just wanted to share with you this amazing, um, realizations by this devotee from Switzerland. Very, 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 you know, spiritually advanced devotee. I'll take a pause here to see if you have anything you'd like me to answer or any questions. I spoke too much for 30 minutes, man. Everything looks okay, now? No? I see a
Yes,
chat over here.
yes, Prabhuji, clear.
Okay, very good.
Uh,
Navin,
Prab- uh,
yes.
this is Shalini here.
Hare
I
Krishna, Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. You were in the today's uh, class. You just discussed the role of the father for choosing the uh, soul.
Yes.
What about the mother?
Um, it is the same, I think, Mataji. This is what we understand, and therefore that Garbhadan Sanskar is done, so that both the parents are in the same consciousness. All right, both parents are in the same consciousness when the child is conceived. So Somewhere else in the scriptures, I think it's mentioned about both parents, but it's just that in this purport, Prabhupada explains that, this is how it is, but it is for both parents. Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. But the soul, according to the purport, the soul first goes into the semen of the man and then it's planted into the womb of the mother.
Yeah, we all know that the mother is provider, but
Yes.
before for choosing the soul, I was like wondering.
Yeah. I've read in quite a number of instances where it is the consciousness of both parents.
Nevat Prabhuji.
Thank you. Okay. Ravi Prabhu, any points to elaborate?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Um, I think the part about the friend being the clear conscience, I was just thinking, let's say we are not devotees. There's the logical person, the practical person always deals with conscience every day. And the child being such a genius is also recognizing there is conscious, and he's sort of separating him and having a conversation with this person called the clear conscious and labels him as his friend. And even a child like that has got desires. I know I do not want to come into the cycle of birth and death again. It's just very fascinating, illuminating. I just, somehow the back of our mind, I just wish that a child's prayers like that could be answered, but maybe uh, the Lord is saying that certain karmic balance or death has to be accounted for. Therefore, you still have to come back to the cycle of birth and death. That was my only thing. The child's prayers, a sincere prayers from a baby. But that's how life is, I guess.
It's a very good point, amazing point which you have just brought up, Prabhu. Let's not forget that the spirit soul is pure, all right. But the spirit soul, it's pure consciousness also, right? It is non-different in terms of the qualitative aspects from Paramatma, but quantitatively it is so small compared to the vastness of the Supreme Lord. Qualitatively, it is the same. And since qualitatively it's the same, it has the entire purity, it's pure. Right? But what has happened is this soul is now carried by the mind, the intelligence, and the false ego into the womb of the mother. And this is where, right? This is where the corruption actually happens. The mind is carrying the impressions from their last life, the karma, etc. The intelligence, right, can be spiritual in nature, can be material in nature. And then the false ego is what is causing the child. While once the child is born, the false ego, under the jurisdiction of Devi, Deva Maya, is making the child to feel that I'm the doer. I'm not a spirit soul. I'm the doer. I'm the enjoyer. All right. So you see, there was a point when there was clear consciousness, but then and that's when you remove the remaining elements of the mind, the false ego, and the intelligence. But once you amalgamate them while the soul is still distinct, then we lose that clear consciousness. Just extending on, what you have just mentioned. I hope I have not confused anyone further. Ken Ravi Prabhu? Just elaborating on what you have just mentioned. Okay.
Yes, Prabhu, thank you.
Right. So these were the prayers from, from the child in the mother's womb. I take shelter on the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord who appears in his various eternal forms and walks on the surface of the Lord, of the world. I take shelter of him only because he can give me relief from all fear. And from him, I have received this condition of life, which is just befitting my impious activities. It could have been worse, I could have been in the womb of an animal, but the Lord is very merciful. Maybe I must have remembered him, and therefore I came in this form again as a human child, which with enough intelligence and enough independence, enough minute independence to make decisions for tomorrow. And then the human soul once again says, I'm the pure soul. Coming back to your point, Ravi Prabhu. Appearing now bound by my activities, bound by all my karmic reaction. I'm lying in the womb of my mother by the arrangements of Maya. And she's still waiting for me outside. And I offer my respectful obeisances unto Paramatma, who is also here with me, but who is unaffected and changeless. He's unlimited, but he's perceived in this repentant heart. Okay. To him, I offer my respectful obeisances. Actually, it's also explained in the Bhagavad Gita where the Lord said, I'm sitting in everyone's heart, and due to me, one is forgetful and one is alive in knowledge. Right? Forgetfulness of what? That I'm a conditioned soul. And my constitutional position is to link back and to serve the Supreme Lord. Okay. So this little independence which we have, we want to misuse it and we want to lord it over the material nature. And therefore, this misuse of independence, which is called Maya, is always available. Otherwise, there would be no independence. Okay, it's very, very dynamic. Therefore, misuse of this independence is the cause of being influenced by Maya. All right, I'm given this independence, so I can orchestrate my entire life so that it's an offering to the Lord, or I can orchestrate the entire life so that it's an offering and enjoyment for myself. The decision is mine. Okay, but one can do so very easily if he surrenders unto the Lord. Okay, anyone who surrenders unto him with a repentant heart can overcome the influence of that stringent laws of material nature. Okay. And so one who wants to come out of this entanglement, it's only possible by bhakti. Right? And then moving on. The human soul then says, I take shelter of the The living entity is put under the influence of material nature and continues a hard struggle for the existence of the path of repeated birth and death. The conditioned life is due to the forgetfulness of the relationship with the Lord. Okay? Therefore, without the Lord's mercy, how can we engage again in transcendental loving service? Because without that sukriti, which is spiritual, okay, in nature, we cannot once again re-engage in the Lord's service. Okay, the fact that all of us are here today, somewhere we must have gotten the mercy of the Lord through his devotees. Past life, maybe, past life possibly. Right? So no one other than the Supreme Personality of Godhead as the localized Paramatma, the partial representation of the Lord, is directing all inanimate and animate objects. So why is it called the partial representation of the Lord, Anuj Prabhu?
Because we understand from the Gita that the Lord can be realized, and Srila Prabhupada, also tells it very extensively that the Brahman realization is not the ultimate realization of the Lord, which mostly people think of, that if you realize Brahman is the ultimate realization, but it's not. So we understand from Srila Prabhupada that is the first level. And
Uh-huh.
then the second level is to understand the Lord as Paramatma. So that is also a partial representation. I think he uses Satchit Anand, where he says that Brahman realization is Sat and Paramatma realization is Satchit. And ultimately, you realize, God as Bhagwan, in his form as Bhagwan. That is the complete realization of God, which is Satchit Anand, realization of God. So to answer your question, like Paramatma realization is not the complete, realization of God.
Full marks, 100%, Prabhu, 100 over 100.
So yeah, I think it's the
Okay, wonderful. And he's present in the three phases of time, past, present, and future. Therefore, the conditioned soul is engaged in different activities by the Lord's direction. And in order to get free from the threefold miseries of the conditioned life, we have to surrender onto him only. Okay. So moving forward. Oops. There goes a minute. Something went wrong. Okay. Minute. Okay. Just a minute. Something went wrong. Yeah. Okay, we're back. Right. So then the last, I think it's the last two. So therefore, my Lord, although I am living in this terrible condition, I do not wish to depart from the mother's abdomen to fall again into the blind well of materialistic life. Your external energy, Deva Maya, is at once captures the new born child and immediately false identification, which is the beginning of the cycle of continuous birth and death, begins. And therefore, without being agitated anymore, I shall deliver myself from the darkness of nascence with the help of my friend, the clear consciousness. So these are all the verses. So, right. So therefore, now we realize that this child in the womb of the mother is actually a child of a human and given that intelligence, right? So, we have a very efficient boat. We have a very, very efficient boat in the form of the human body, right? And therefore, we need an expert captain in the form of our spiritual master. And then the scriptural injunctions like Srimad Bhagavatam, they are the favorable wind, right? So if you want to move in this boat to come out of this cycle of birth and death, we are already given one ingredient, which is the human body of life. What's the second ingredient? The expert captain who can guide us. And what's the third ingredient for this recipe of going back to Godhead? The injunctions in the scriptures. Okay. So if we do not cross over the ocean of nascence, of material existence, in spite of these three facilities, then Prabhupada says that we are intentionally committing suicide. Okay. So remember, there are three ingredients. Number one is this body is already given to me. By default, it's there. Number two is the spiritual master. And number three is the injunctions from the scriptures like the Bhagavatam. Okay. In fact, even Rupa Goswami explains to, in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that when one is very anxious to get free from this material entanglement, he gets enlightenment through a spiritual master and Krishna. All right. So Krishna as the super soul, as Paramatma, is seated within the heart. And when the living entity is serious, then the Lord will direct him to take the shelter of his representation, the shelter of his representative, who is essentially the spiritual master. Okay, so, getting a guru is not something which is like a fashion statement of the day. It has to come deep from the heart. And then Paramatma will guide you to the right guru. Okay. If we have a cheating tendency, then we will be cheated. Okay. All right. So now we move on to the next slide. In the human form of life, the intelligence is developed, and one has to utilize that developed intelligence to get out of the circle of birth and death. Right? Prabhupada writes, one who does not do so is a miser. Just like a person who has immense wealth does not utilize it, keeping it simply to see. All right. So this human body is for bigger things than just accumulation of wealth. A person who does not actually utilize his human intelligence to get out of the clutches of Maya is accepted as miserly. All right. And the exact opposite is someone who is magnanimous. Magnanimous because he's not only doing it for himself, but he's also assisting others in the entire process. Okay, so the Lord is always seeking the opportunity to reclaim the fallen souls. The Lord is always waiting, like a father waiting, when will my child come back? Right? And therefore, there is no sufficient means to repay the Lord apart from just praying to the Lord with all our gratitude and with folded hands. Okay, I've just extracted from different parts of chapter number 31. Okay, so that comes to the end of chapter number 31. Before we move on to chapter number 32 and 33, which is, once again, very simple, straightforward, because you have already done the entire foundational elements in the previous chapters, as well as in Cantor number 2 and Cantor number 1. Any questions by any one of you before we move on? That was the last verse. Shalini, Lalita, Priyanka Mataji, how are you?
No, Prabhuji, everything is clear.
Okay, wonderful. All right, so Flora, nice to see you after a long time. How are you, Flora Mataji? Okay, so Flora Mataji used to come to our classes in Lakshmi Narayan Temple. So in my class, I've explained to you all many times that, sometimes the Lord is so merciful, right? So Flora's father, he was a Catholic. And towards the final stages of his life, he was in a coma. And Flora invited my wife and me to come and chant for the father. So, and what happened was, I still remember I went to the hospital. Flora's father was there in a coma, unconscious, and we started chanting for the father. And suddenly, after 10 to 15 minutes of chanting, Flora's father, still in a state of coma, but he shouted out, Rama, Rama. And Flora, me, and my wife, we were like shocked. Here you have someone who is in the final stage, in a coma, about to leave anytime, supposed to be unconscious, but he's hearing the Maha Mantra and he is yelling out, Rama, Rama. And then I asked Flora, like, how is this possible? And she remarked that, uh, my father was a Hindu his entire life previously. And he used to read the Ramayana to us. And then he got remarried to a Catholic lady and he became a Catholic. But his reading of the Ramayana as a service to Lord Ram, the Lord did not forget. And therefore, the Lord even allowed him to call out his name despite being in a state of coma. Now, you tell me how scientific spirituality is, how scientific Krishna consciousness is. Can anyone else explain this process? See? That is why we should have full faith in what we are doing. We are just so fortunate how Prabhupada has made this so simple for us to understand. Right? Okay. Laura Mataji, I think you are struggling to get unmuted, which is fine. Okay. No questions, everyone? So let's move on. Okay, so now it's going to be chapter number 32 and 33. And as I mentioned in today's, in yesterday's WhatsApp to all of you, we can complete Cantor number 3 today. And we will start with Cantor number 4. It gets more and more interesting. All right. Lots of amazing storytelling from Cantor 4 onwards. You will love it. Okay. All right. So summary of Cantor 3, chapter number 32 to 33. So these two chapters, essentially, they conclude the dialogue between whom? Kapila Dev and his mother Devahuti, right? Where the mother is asking the son, who is none other than the Supreme Personality of Godhead, about the transcendental truths, about bhakti, about material entanglement, and about devotional service. Okay. So we have completed chapter number 31, and now let's look at what chapter number 32 covers. Once again, we have already done a lot of this, and therefore I'm just summarizing it in the interest of time. So Kapila Dev is outlining the tragic journey of the conditioned soul. Right? We learned in chapter number 31, although originally spiritual in nature and full of bliss, coming back to Anuj Prabhu point that, we are also Sachit Anand, right? Just like Paramatma, full of bliss, full of eternal and, full of transcendence, full of consciousness. But we have forgotten all of this because of the entrapment of the mind, the intelligence, and the false ego under the jurisdiction of Mother Maya. Right? So the soul becomes entangled in material existence because of the false identification with the body and for the desire for sense gratification. Right. So Kapila Dev is explaining the horrifying reality of being trapped in the mother's womb in chapter number 31. However, upon birth, the soul forgets everything, including the previous suffering, and then the endless cycle of birth and death is driven by what? Very important. Two important points. Number one is karma, which is coming from the past life, and number two is our lust. Okay. So, and then even heavenly pleasures, remember, are temporary, which will end in rebirth. Sometimes we are, because of our good deeds, etc., we might be promoted to the higher planetary systems. The moment we exhaust our positive karma, we will have to come back and reborn again. Okay? And then the way out, there's only one way out, which is freedom through bhakti. So Kapila Dev is then saying that, yes, there's the cycle of birth and death, but there is hope. Because I'm the Supreme Personality of Godhead and I want all of you to come back to me. You all wanted to enjoy independently from you, and therefore I made this material world. I'm just waiting when you guys are going to be coming back. And therefore he declares that only bhakti yoga or devotional service unto me can truly liberate the soul. All right. It starts with expressing gratitude to the Lord for all that we have gotten. And that can only come when we are repentant in our heart for having orchestrated our lives in a way which is against our constitutional position of being part and parcel of the Lord, a servant of the Lord. So what does devotion do? All right. All the other processes of repentance, basically, as what Anuj Prabhu has mentioned in the previous class, they are like, the elephant taking a bath. Elephant takes a bath, and then what does he do? He throws back all of that sand, soil, and mud onto his body. But what devotional process does is even that inclinations, if it's done properly with full maturity and with full consciousness of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, it can even burn the roots which brings about this inclination of wanting to sin. All right, we saw this in the life of Bilva Mangal Thakur. All right, so for devotional service can burn our karma away, right? Just like fire burns dry glass, not just on the top, but also the entire root. So there's no inclination of coming back unless we fall into Maya again. Right? So a devotee is not touched by the material miseries. Kapila Dev is explaining, yes, the material miseries will be there. All right, miseries caused by his own body, by disease, by external entities, by material nature. All these miseries will be there. But then the devotee is equipoised. This is expected in this material world. This is expected. Okay? Unlike jnana karma, okay, jnana and karma, or jnana yoga and karma yoga, bhakti will never fail. Even if it's practiced imperfectly. Why? Because Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that you will come back and continue from where you have done, where you have stopped. All right. You may be born into an aristocratic family or into a devotee family. So you are provided this, you are provided this ecosystem to continue from where you have stopped. Okay? And Krishna also says that bhakti is the best insurance policy, isn't it? Ananya chintayanto mam ye jana prayupasate tesham tatati yuktanam yogashema wahami aham. Whatever you have, I will protect that. And whatever you do not have, I will provide that to you, Krishna says. Then we move on to the final chapter, chapter number 33, which is the devotional realization. Having heard everything, okay, all of you, just like Devahuti, now you are offering deep prayers of gratitude and realization, and you are glorifying Kapila Dev, because Kapila Dev is not just an regular, ordinary child of Devahuti, but he is the Supreme Lord himself. And because of this explanations by Kapila Dev, Devahuti now realizes that actually she's beyond this body. She's beyond this concept of being someone's wife, someone's mother. All right. But she's a pure spirit soul. Therefore, she's no longer entangled in this illusion. And Kapila Dev then blesses his mother, assuring her that her pure devotion will grant her liberation. All this while she was serving her husband, who was in deep devotional service. And now she continues by engaging in her own pure devotion to the Supreme Lord. Okay. And being so blessed that the Lord, the Supreme Lord himself, came as her child, came to deliver this sermon to all of us through her. Just see how blessed she is. And Devahuti then perfects her life through meditation and remembrance of the Lord, chanting the Lord's name, okay, and achieving yogic siddhis. And Kapila Dev then departs because his mission is fulfilled. The Lord comes again and again just to what? To deliver us, to bring us back. So the key takeaways for devotional service is number one, bhakti is the only permanent solution. No amount of material comfort, ritual, or knowledge can save us from rebirth. Only loving service to the Lord can liberate the soul. Even if a little service is done in bhakti, it can destroy great amounts of our karmic reaction, if the Lord so desires. And if the Lord so desires, we can be guaranteed progress. The material life is full of suffering. You know, Brahmaji says to Govinda that, I've been put through so much of difficulties, but if a living entity like me can just tolerate this, then I am worthy of this liberation back to home, back to Godhead. Tattenu kampaso sumik samano. Right? Very nice. Even Lord Brahma becomes bewildered. So the soul's journey through the womb, birth, old age, disease, and death is inherently painful. But you know what? The Lord keeps his promise. If we have given our life to the Lord, okay, just in the case of Flora's father, we explained, right? It's not easy, to call out the Lord's name just before you die. And he became a Catholic. But the Lord remembered all the sacrifices which he had done in reading the Ramayana to his children when they were really young. And in ensuring that someone comes over, all right, to as an instrument to recite the Mahamantra to him. And he has a daughter who facilitates that. Just imagine how merciful the Supreme Lord is. Okay, so it's a very, very painful process in this material world. But once we have taken shelter of a spiritual master. If we have taken shelter of the Bhagavatam, the scriptures, and because I have got this human body, all right, then there is a high possibility of us going back home, back to Godhead, right? It's important for us to listen to pure devotees like Srila Prabhupada, right? Just imagine, Prabhuji, in the morning, he sends you this short clip, 30 seconds, 20 seconds, but hearing from a pure devotee, what it does is, it can transform our heart. Okay, because this pure devotee speech is carrying the sandalwood dust from the lotus feet of the Lord. And then when this goes into our ears, it brings about a paradigm shift in our hearts. Okay, they become amazing places to sow the seeds of devotional service. Therefore, this regular hearing of Shravanam is the foundation of bhakti. Practice makes perfect, and just be sincere. Even if we are doing it imperfectly, it's okay. All right, Kapila Dev explains to his mother that even an imperfect devotee will never fall down because Krishna protects his sincere devotees and ensures their progress. It's okay. You restart from where you have stopped. And I want to be vulnerable with all of you all that there are times when we just do not have taste in doing devotional service. We do not have taste in chanting. All right, there will always be a down. Acknowledge the down and tell yourself that yes, it can only get better from now onwards. Spiritual realization is available to everyone. Point number 5. Devahuti was a mother, a householder. She was not a yogi. Yet, through devotion, she achieved full liberation. All right. So, your external role as a teacher, as a student, as a householder, etc., it doesn't limit your inner spiritual growth. Okay. So that was the end of Canto number 3. Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai.
Jai.
Okay, so now let's see what points, what questions you have. It's a small group today. Mauli Mataji, any questions? Managed to complete the entire class in 1 hour today. Okay. Shefali Mataji, how was your trip to Puri?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hmm.
It was amazing, Prabhuji.
Okay. What's
And
so amazing?
I mean, I didn't expect that much crowd, first of all.
Okay.
It was overcrowded.
Uh-huh.
Couldn't see anything. Like, if I talk about darshan also, so I believe God has seen us.
Okay. I love that
Because
point, man. Yeah.
Because the way the panda carrying a tin,
Uh-huh.
holding a tin. So I was just wondering why in this crowd he's holding a tin in his hand.
Uh-huh.
So he kept the tin in one corner and he told us to stand on that and then you can have darshan on that.
Wow.
So I was just, it was overwhelming. I mean,
Okay.
yeah,
Nice.
it was beautiful and
Yeah.
thanks to you as well.
Not at all.
Because we thought we will manage on our own, that we will stand in a crowd. We were ready to stand for 3 hours, 4 hours.
Uh-huh.
But when we see the crowd, we thought we cannot have darshan today itself.
Okay.
Because when we ask people also, they say, oh, any gate you can enter, you can go to this side, you can go to that side.
Uh-huh.
And then finally we called the panda and he came. I mean, we didn't talk to him before. We were standing outside and then we contacted him. He came and he took us for darshan.
Okay.
And for our satisfaction, he took us to all around. He took us to the kitchen as well.
Wow.
Where it's prohibited. We cannot enter. As a lady also, he said you cannot go, but we were standing outside. And he told us how the prasadam has been prepared and how people are carrying it and offering it. And then, I mean, I didn't, then we asked whatever question we asked. he answered
Mm.
some of the thing I understand, some could not understand. But thank you. It
Yeah,
was
it's nice. Very happy for you. It's amazing, how if you go to the kitchen, essentially everything is manual. All right. The pots are clay pots, manual fire using the wood, which is from the ruts, right? And there's like Chappan Bog. If Chappan is 56, Chappan is 56,
56.
56
56.
dishes, yeah, being cooked for the Lord. And then what the pandas do is, they will cover their nose while
Covered.
they are carrying the the bog to the Lord. And the way it's cooked is the 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 food is placed in this pots, one on top another, and then you have the huge fire at the bottom, right?
Yes.
And the top
The last
pot
top one will cook
it will
fast.
cook first, right? Hard to understand, right? But the
Hard to
top one will
understand.
correct, yeah.
And the
And
way they were carrying the food, I mean, it looked very heavy when they
yeah,
were carrying on their shoulder.
yeah,
They were perspiring like anything,
correct.
all wet.
Yeah,
And then he took us to the vegetable section as well, where all the wastage, how
yeah,
they are using it and going for cows.
yeah. Very nice. Did
Mm.
you see the burial grounds of the earlier Jagannaths?
No, he talked about that, but he
Okay,
didn't take us there.
okay.
He
Must
he
be so
said
crowded.
he explained,
Okay,
and that Yama Sili also,
yeah,
the staircase, which I already read in Google.
okay,
When you go there, you don't know, and maybe I stepped on that also because that was black.
okay, okay.
And
Nice.
yeah,
Yeah. It's an
thank
amazing
you.
experience to go to Puri, and the tickets are like so cheap, 200 plus up and down. So those of you who have not been to Jagannath Puri, yeah, just organize it over one weekend. If you want, I can come
Mm.
along with you.
Yeah, but yes, of course,
You know?
darshan. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. You have been many times, so you know how to
Yeah,
proceed for darshan
yeah.
queue. But I've been to Rameshwaram, Dwarkadish also,
Uh-huh.
and to Badrinath. I didn't go yet. But
Okay.
all these three, I find the darshan of Lord was not easy here. It was very challenging. I mean, when I went Dwarkadish, I went for 3-4 times for darshan.
Yeah.
Morning also, afternoon, evening hours. But here, I mean, I didn't
Okay. You
dare
know
to.
why? You went on the peak. You went on holy. Ah, you should not go during the peak period,
Because
actually.
we were also looking for our holiday,
Yeah, yeah.
school holidays for kids as well.
Okay.
And yeah, maybe it was peak hour, but I've heard from the people
Yeah,
it's always peak hour.
yeah.
And people, those who were there, they said they live there, but they have not been to temple yet.
Okay,
They
okay.
told us that we are very fortunate that at least we get to have darshan.
Yeah,
That we are here, we are auto rickshaw people, but we have not went inside. We have not
yeah,
seen
yeah.
yet.
Okay.
So
Yeah, so most of the, all the Western devotees, the devotees from Bali, the devotees from China, even all our spiritual masters like Radhanath Maharaj, etc., my Guru Maharaj, they have not been inside the temple. They are not allowed. Because if you are not
mm,
Indian, even Indira Gandhi wasn't allowed.
but she was
Uh,
Indian.
no, but her husband is a Parsi, na, or a Muslim, I can't remember.
Oh,
So not allowed.
but
Um,
how would they get to know if somebody
Oh, they
is
just look at you,
Christian?
they'll just look at you, and if they suspect, they'll call you out, and then they'll harass you. So
Okay, maybe
yeah,
in the
yeah,
police. Otherwise, the it was
yeah,
so crowded that nobody see who is Muslim and who is Hindu, and maybe it's your own conscience if you don't want to. Because yeah,
and,
it
and
was
there's a
written
reason
off.
why. There's a reason why they don't allow, because the temple was looted by the Mohammedans many times,
Mm.
and therefore they don't want to
But
allow
all our
anymore.
ancient temple have been looted. I mean, if you see the history,
Yeah.
then it's not only one temple, many
Yes,
temples.
yeah,
Yep.
and therefore they feel that why should they allow these people who are not devotees? They only want devotees to come in. Anyway, calls for a discussion another time. But Rath Yatra is coming in about 2 months' time. So any of you who want to actually go for the Rath Yatra, yeah, let's go for it.
Thank you.
It's going to
Thank you,
be an
Swamiji.
experience. It's going to be an experience. Okay, any other points, any other questions, anyone? Otherwise, we will end our class early today. All right, Granthra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
Jai.
And I will not be able to do the class next week. I'll be traveling during that time, and therefore, we will start with Cantor number 4 in 2 weeks' time. Okay, I'll send you all something over to read. Hare Krishna. Thank you
Thank you,
very
Prabhuji.
much,
Hare Krishna,
everyone.
Prabhuji. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
Dandavad
you.
Pranam, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Dhanyavad. Thank you.